All right, we're live. Silver Doctors live on air, Wednesday edition, the 30th of the month of October. How you doing, Paul Half Dollar?
Doing good, Mike. How you doing today? It's a big Wednesday, FOMC day today.
Yes, it is. So definitely expecting. I guess what we expecting a quarter of a point cut, or what are you expecting?
Yeah, I'm expecting a quarter of a point cut. The CME group had the probability at like 92% a couple days ago, but it was above 96% this morning when I checked. But
Uh-huh.
the 10-year right now is at 1.8, so it'll be nicely de-inverted if the Fed cuts by a quarter point. So I think that is in fact coming because it makes them look good because people aren't screaming about how the 10 years inverted with the Fed funds rate anymore.
Yeah. All right. So we will see within the next couple hours. But before we dive any
Mhm.
further, let's welcome people. Let's acknowledge a couple of people's presence for joining this afternoon, as always. We're nearing the end of the month, a day away from the end of the month, and
Mhm.
into a exciting November. And so, let me see who's watching us thus far. We got Finance Freak says someone's lying. We got C. Okay, got a little back and forth there. Not sure what that is. We got Phil. We got Great Lakes Traveler. We got Tom. Low blood pressure. Gary D. John Michael. Chris. Ross. Big Bubs. Uh, huh? Tickle Me Silly. Charles. Okay, how's everybody doing? So appreciate you guys hanging out with us this afternoon. As always, going to cover a couple different subjects. As always, you know how the conversation when it flows, we end up going everywhere. So if you guys have
Mhm.
anything you want to make sure we touch on, highlight at Silver Doctors in the chat and it'll pop up. We'll see it. Or call us 567 336 0844. Phone line should
Mhm.
be good today. And so
Mhm.
definitely love to hear your voice. So that
Mhm.
being the case, let's get right into it. So, Mr. Half Dollar, where you want to start off with? What you want to start off with?
Well, I don't like to do this to you, Mike, but
Oh no!
yeah, here it comes. I think we're going to start off with this,
All right.
and it's one of our standards that we start out with, and I know you see that TWITTER right off the bat.
Yeah.
So let's start off with this because that also ties into what the people are going back and forth with about in the chat as far as somebody's lying.
Uh huh.
Because it's not in my title, but it's in the little picture that I made because I'm not sure if you can pull this up on a screen. This is from just this morning. This is
Yeah.
from just this morning. Do you see that right
Yes,
there?
I do. I do. The greatest economy in American history.
The greatest economy in American history. Let's cut interest rates by 25 basis points, Mike.
Oh my goodness, Lord. So
Mhm.
it's interesting to see some of the pictures people are posting. Yeah, I don't think. I wonder, do people really buy this? I wonder, out of the thousands of people that retweeted this, how many people are like actually like, yeah, go ahead, we got the greatest economy, or how many critics out here are trying to shine a little light on how this? Okay, I got one says this is the worst economy. This is the
Mhm.
worst Okay, this is the worst president in American history. So, yeah, it could be a whole show just going through these replies here. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I just sent you the gross domestic product. Remember we were talking about that was coming out today.
yeah.
So President Trump tweeted greatest economy in American history at 7:38, and at 8:30, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said our economy grew at 1.9%.
1.9% doesn't cut it, Paul.
For the third quarter. That's
It
for the third
that's
quarter.
that's not 3% like we were promised. Somebody's
Hmm.
lying to us.
Hmm.
Something's wrong
Yes,
here.
something is wrong here. But this is where I want to start with today, because I think this will be a good little discussion that we can have.
Okay.
And what I want to start with, because this just kind of ties in, if this is something that we would see in the greatest economy ever, or even in a good economy. So it doesn't even have to be a great economy. Let's just think if this is something that we would see in a good economy. What I just
God
sent
have
you
mercy.
is the link to the ADP
Mm-hmm.
employment report, right? So this is a private sector
Mm-hmm.
research, right? ADP, they do a lot of payroll stuff, processing, things like this. But every month they come out with their own report. So it's not just the BLS. There's a couple reports every month. Do you see that link there? So scroll down a little bit and it'll show you where the jobs have been created and where the jobs have been lost. And where the jobs have been lost is just sticking out to me like a sore thumb. Like, look at this. Good producing sector. Are you with me on this one, Mike?
Yes, I got you. So I
Okay.
see good producing sector. You have negative 13,000. Okay.
Yep, lost 13,000 jobs in the good producing sector. And ADP actually processes private sector payrolls, right? So they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Natural resources and mining. So here's really good jobs right there, down 4,000. Construction, right? A booming economy would have to have some construction going on, but we lost 4,000 jobs for construction. And then look at the manufacturing, down 4,000, right? That doesn't sound like jobs are coming back to the United States to me.
Yeah.
So, then let's take the flip side of that, right? Well, where are the jobs growing, right? So think about this, right? Think about this. Trade, transportation, and utilities. I kind of question that one a little bit, but let's move on to the good ones. Information. Well, yeah, because HFT algos require people that know computer programming to be able to shave off those pennies in the stock market. But then we get into stuff like financial activities. That's just what we need, right? More financialization. We get into stuff like professional and business because, we clearly need more insurance agents and more lawyers in this world.
Yeah.
We get into education and healthcare because the government's made it so overly complicated that, like, for every doctor, you've got 5 people supporting the doctor, right? Leisure and hospitality for the 0.01% that are actually spending their money, and then 9,000 in other. But just the point is, when you say we've got this great economy, what do we have? We have financialization growing. We've got healthcare and education growing because of over government regulation and just big government in general. And all the stuff where you want to see strong numbers, we've been losing jobs. This is a very, very sick economy, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. So what it shows me is a service sector, put paper pushers, computer stackers, people of that nature that's in the office buildings, overseeing things. Those jobs have gone up, but the blue collar workers, those out in the fields and the factories getting their hands dirty, is going down. So make America great again. I wonder exactly how do you define that as far as how do you break it down to what industries, what categories, and what type of income comes with these jobs? Because I'd imagine a lot of these service sector jobs, the pay that they're receiving is probably not as good as it was post or pre Great Recession or Great Financial Crisis type of thing. So a lot of these jobs here probably not paying much, especially that trade, transportation, and utilities, whatever that is made up of. So sure the quality is down.
And then like leisure and hospitality, right? So like working in food service or cleaning up hotel rooms, none of those are good paying jobs in and of themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have worked hard and got a good job, fortunately, but the vast majority of people, these are like where you read stories about people have to have 2 and 3 jobs just to survive nowadays.
Yeah.
So, we do not have the greatest economy in American history. I would have to disagree with that wholeheartedly. GDP was just released at 1.9%, and that's a highly, highly, highly sketchy, doctored up, managed number right there. And it's interesting that it's exactly 1.9% because it's one of those little things the Fed can look to and say, well, GDP is 1.9%. So, that makes the case to cut rates here.
Yeah. Now, as always, I'm not sure how much longer after it's initially released do they go back and make adjustments to it. So probably next year, it's springtime, summertime, they'll go back and make adjustments for Q3 and Q4 GDP numbers, and it'll probably be definitely a lot lower than 1.9.
Yes. This is the first estimate, so they call it the advanced estimate, just for people who might not know. But yes, exactly, because they give out an advanced estimate and then they revise it. I want to say they revise it 4 times, but I could be wrong. It might just be 3 revisions. But they do the first revision, second revision, and then the final revision. But just the picture that we're getting painted is pretty gloomy. And remember, on Monday we were talking about the consensus for Friday's actual government jobs report that the government produces. The consensus was under 100,000 jobs.
Wow, problematic. And so, on a side note, but something still interconnected, is somebody, recently sent me an email, and they're in a trade and export and business, and so not only because of the whole Chile situation, their personal business is impacted by that. But then another thing they were saying was just the amount of open and available ports for incoming goods and services. I think either the shipping lines or whatnot, they've cut down on the number of ports, and therefore the actual cargo lanes, whatever they call, have been diminished as well, which means prices have gone up for importers to get hold of their goods and have them shipped here. And so they're saying, the person was saying to me, because they have affiliations directly with China, and they were saying that it's just becoming more problematic with all this trade situation, and the cost of it is becoming an issue. So all they've done is pass on the cost to him. So he's had to go up on his services. And so I'm thinking like, wow, like this definitely can't get any better the way it's being painted. And this is stuff we don't really know about on the surface. So yeah. So these numbers definitely will be impacted by all those things that, we have no clue about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and so not only is inflation going up, but clearly the consumer, we talk about the consumer and the American, or just anybody really, not just Americans, but the consumer in general being tapped out. I don't know if you saw, but Tesla just reported their earnings, and their sales in the United States plunged 39% in the quarter. 39% their sales were down. That is massive. Very, that is like an absolute crash in Tesla sales, right?
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
we've reached the end. We've reached the end of this point here, Mike. We're right there right now, and all they're doing is just these last little gasps to try and keep it going for a little bit longer, which is unfortunate because this prolonging it's just going to make it worse. That was you talked about,
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question that was put out here. This is by Charles. It says, I can't figure out why Trump decided to tie himself to the market. Could it be it was the easiest indicator to rig, or just saying? So, that would be a great question. What made him flip flop and decide to run with the narrative of having the greatest economy? Because so ultimately, what I'm getting at by him touting how great of an economy we have now. So was Obama's economy bad? Is what he would be willing to say, because he inherited everything from him and just added on top of it, and he's running with that. So I guess we would have to give credit to Obama as well for handing off such a great economy that he was able to run with and make the greatest. So
yeah, the very, very first time he said we have the greatest economy, he said we have the greatest economy, ever, right? So the greatest economy in history. That statement, the very, very, very first time that he made that was before 2 years into the presidency. So think about that. In less than 2 years, that's all it took to make the economy better than it's ever been in the entire history of the United States.
Wow.
My view on it, right?
Yeah,
I think that President Trump is the fall guy. So what I think is going on, and it's just like laws, right? Whenever a law is written, you got to know that it means the exact opposite, right? So when President Trump says we have the greatest economy in history, if you think about it the way that politicians write laws, right? Yeah. Then we have the worst economy in history.
All right. So it looks like we might have a call. So let's see if we can get somebody on here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Mike, what up? It's George from Florida. How are you?
I'm doing good, George from Florida. What's on your mind?
Paul, what's happening, man? You guys are awesome, man. I love the analogies, man. I left those in a comment a couple weeks ago. But a couple key points that I wanted to really quickly make.
Go ahead.
I don't know if y'all saw the news this morning in Lebanon. The first central bank has bit the dust because of bankruptcy. So that's one.
Okay.
Lebanon bank crashing.
All right.
The second thing is I want to throw a theory at you. I know I've heard it tossed around a little bit. But we know Trump has been beating up on the Fed, for months now, right? Earlier this year in a congressional session, I know that he was working with guys like Thomas Massey and Doug Collins and, a couple different guys that are referred as papers. Right? Well, Thomas Massey reintroduced the Federal Reserve Transparency Act, which was essentially Rand Paul's Audit the Fed bill. So my question is Trump kind of taking this timeline of beating up on the Fed, forcing them to lower these rates to kind of kill the growth of the debt, and then, just kind of holding this bill back, waiting in the wings until election comes around where he can actually have this bill passed, audit the Fed, take over the Fed, maybe turn control back over to the National Treasury, and maybe implement some sort of sound money. I mean, we keep seeing his nominees to the board for the Federal Reserve. I mean, they all look like gold bugs to me. I mean, is he trying to implement some type of sound money would be my thing. So I'm going to hang up with y'all's responses, man. I love you guys on Mondays and Wednesdays, man. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Those are all great points that were made there. I have, as far as Lebanon, let's hit on that first, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been following Lebanon too close.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like people who are really interested in like learning what's going on there. Also, Ron Paul has been on top of that in a lot of his videos lately, so that would be a good source to go through. Have you been following the Lebanon issue?
Apart from hearing about, I think last week I mentioned that the ATM machines and banks were closed due to the chaos. Nobody could withdraw funds. Haven't checked into it, so I got an article up right here from. Looks like on Monday it came out, and it says Lebanon central bank urges quick solution to avoid future collapse. So this is the first thing that came up. So if the actual central bank did go belly up, it hasn't made mainstream news just yet. But from what this picture shows me, there's still chaos there. Therefore, yeah, there's some major issues there. So I definitely stay on top of that one.
You know, we talk about contagion a lot, and there's just no way. Like what we're seeing is like if you could think about like a disease in the financial world, this is like a worldwide pandemic of Ebola in the financial world. This is what we have. I mean, this is some scary stuff that's going on, and in the sense that it's everywhere, right? Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, and it's just a matter of time because there has to be counterparty risk all along. You know, how many consequences are there going to be from the Central Bank of Lebanon blowing up, right? There's got to be some consequences to that. Right. So there's just no way all this is going to, you know, keep, especially in the United States, immune from all this stuff.
Yeah, and also to add to that, Steve Mnuchin is out doing a Middle East, Eastern Asia tour. So no doubt he is coordinating and connecting with a lot of these central bank / finance ministers of these countries to talk about how they can come together on this last hoorah and go out with a bang. To make sure that when this bang happens, they'll be still in power to try to pick up where they left off at, I'm assuming. So,
yes. Just yesterday, we put up an article, and I can't remember if it was when he said this was yesterday or if it wasn't yesterday, but apparently in response to the repo market interventions, Steve Mnuchin publicly said that we're looking to reduce the liquidity requirements for the banks, and also to reel back some of the post-crisis regulations that were put in place to put a little bit of control on the banks.
That's problems. Yeah, so I talked about that last night, man, and it was one of the things where just looking at it, and so I put the question out there, and then also don't forget we got to answer the caller's question about gold back in the system. So let's not forget that. So one of the things I pointed out was Steve Mnuchin, who's Secretary Treasury of our country. He's a head financial guy. He's the one supposed to be writing checks and overseeing the financial matters for Uncle Sam. And I'm thinking like, man, it's definitely something wrong with that because he's only been in that position 2 years, but yet he worked for Goldman Sachs for 17 years and was a CIO when he left. And then he went on to be the board of directors, chairman or whatever for Sears and Kmart. And both Sears and Kmart are gone. Like they're no longer what they used to be. Something like, you know, he's only so who does he pledge his allegiance to? 2 years as a treasurer, secretary of treasury, or 17 years as a too big to fail banker. So automatically, I'm assuming whatever he does will be in the best interest of his former employees. Given the fact, I would imagine he's getting a nice little pension payout or retirement package from Goldman Sachs. So whatever he does will rip us off. We'll rip our country off for sure.
Yeah, those are good points. And, you know, it's hard to know where those allegiances lie, but I don't think that they lie with the country there. You know, it is on the side of the bankers. Yeah, you know, because also you don't get to be at the top in Hollywood without being dirty like that. So,
you compromise yourself somewhere. So, but gold, let's talk about that. So gold real quick. Let's get to his question before we get off on that one. Gold back in the system, gold bugs, a lot of gold being mentioned. What are your thoughts?
You know, I really wish I could be optimistic, and the theory is sound, right? The caller, I can't remember what his name was. He was calling from Florida, right?
I think it was George, if I'm not mistaken.
George. I mean, George, your theory is sound. It's completely logical. I really wish that I could believe it, but I can't believe it. You know, because first of all, you know, they're not going to get a bill passed like that to be able to audit the Fed. It's just not going to happen. You know, because people in the government and in the Congress and in the Senate, they don't even really understand money anyway, you know? Even if they did understand money, there's only a very few. And on top of that, even if they did understand money, they would want to perpetuate the system that we have it now because they're benefiting from it. So it's just, you know, are they really going to go above and beyond their own self-interests to do what's best for the country? I don't think that that's what they're going to do, Mike. I think that people are going to act in their own self-interest, which is perpetuating the system as it is now because they're benefiting greatly from it. as far as the whole gold thing, I wish I could also think that he was going to, bring us back to sound money, but I really don't see it. I mean, for a number of reasons, because, the other thing is there's never the perfect time, right? Like, I remember when I was early married, we had decided we wanted to be in a house before our first daughter was born. And we were married for a year and we struggled a little bit. And then after that first year, we got a couple jobs and we worked our butts off. And we moved into that house as my wife was pregnant, right? First house. Now, I say that because I can't remember where I was going with my thought with that, but just the fact that these things take time to play out. And, I lost that thought. I'm going to have to write it down and come back to it, Mike.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds like it's going to be a good one. So let's just check in via the chat and see if there's any thoughts or anything highlighted out there worthy of mentioning. See a lot of good back and forth out there. Let me see. Anything stand out? I see some numbers. It's let me see. I don't step foot in Portland, Oregon. We got people going back and forth with each other. Take money out of the bank, buy a shovel and silver. Why would you insist that I pay interest on fake money? Speaking of which, okay, go ahead. It came back. Go
ahead. Sorry. Hold your thought. I remember my thought. My thought was there's never the perfect time, right? You just have to go ahead and do it. That's my whole point. Yeah. If Trump's going to do something for sound money or for gold, he has to do it. He just has to do it because there's never a good time. I think back to that when we were buying a house because we actually planned for that and we actually set goals. And we think that that's one of the things that we need to live by is making goals and working towards accomplishing them. So when I think, and then I think about like friends that we had around the same time period, and they were like, well, first I want to finish with school, and then I want to go, get my doctorate degree, and then I want to get a good job, and then we want to buy a house. They want to do all of these things before they have kids, because they want to make sure it's the perfect time. But there's never going to be the perfect time. So if President Trump wants to do something that's good for gold, do it now. Now is the time. It's not to wait. It's not to plan. It's not 4D chess. I can't see it like that because, you can't do anything until you drain the swamp. And that's step number one. And step number two is you can't go back onto a gold standard until you drain the swamp. So there has to be massive, shocking change if we're going to get anything done with this.
Yeah. And to make it even more difficult is that you have to really be able to define the swamp. That's too much of a vague term that it doesn't include political figures. Is it just the banking sector? Is it elite families? How do you define it to be able to even pinpoint what direction to go in? Nevertheless, who are you going to put in their place? Because they've infiltrated every single sector, every single industry, to where if you remove everybody, those are probably the most productive members of society, as well as being crooks as well. So, it's going to be hard to replace that. But yet, hopefully, it needs to be done, unfortunately. But, so phone lines are open. Feel free to give me a call. The phone hasn't rung, and it does work because we did get a call. So definitely reach out to me. And the thought I had, let me see, it slipped for a minute, but it should come back to me.
Okay.
It has to do with, I don't know, I forgot already.
You were going through the chat. No, I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's in there. I said negative rates, they do not leave currency in the bank. Oh, I think it had to do something to do with the banking sector. Okay, so later today, I'll be posting an interview with Alan Myers, who's a forensic accountant, and so he goes deep. And so he actually shared some information about how, because he's so technical, he likes to be very true, finely tuned with his words. And he was talking about how just the fraudulent nature of the banking sector, their bookkeeping model in and of itself is very flawed, which proves even more as to why the whole fractional reserve lending model is one big hoax, especially when it comes time for even the banks to so-called pay taxes. And he mentioned about how can a bank that creates something out of nothing, that uses that nothing to pay for everything, then report according to their own profits and pay taxes. He's like basically saying they don't pay taxes, which is a major fraud in of itself. So he broke it down a lot deeper in that discussion. So for those that make sure you definitely want to watch it because he's very precise and detailed with his, because he's a numbers guy. So numbers and keeping track of books is what he does. So great discussion there, but it's about the banking sector. So you'll definitely enjoy that. So
yeah, that's good stuff there.
What else there? So I see a lot of great thoughts out here. It says Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said previously that the government could be launching 50-year bonds as soon as next year. Okay, that's another good one. And so I came across that article earlier as well. So 50-year bonds, and so that definitely beats 100-year bonds because if people were to actually buy those things, you wouldn't live to get the payout. But you might get a little bit of a 50-year bond in some other form of a currency. I'm not sure what they're gonna be paying you in. But how desperate do you think they'll actually become to where they'll try issuing any last minute products such as a bond, as well as the government, Uncle Sam basically being insolvent, broke, and default on all his promises? What's the likely chance you think that thing will take off and gain some ground? What type of interest rates could they put that thing at to make it attractive?
Well, either way, though, I'm sure it would attract in that capital that they talk about, that foreign demand for that, since there's 17 trillion in negative yielding debt around the world. You know that people are going to buy that stuff up, right?
Oh, and on top of that, financial institutions, for as the investment portfolio vehicle stuff, they have to buy that stuff. So
yeah,
a lot of retirement money will be, used to acquire those.
Yeah, so just, on the surface, there's going to be demand for it, and it's unfortunate because, it does several things when you think about it at just the very core. It's punishing our children and our future grandchildren and the future of America. That's number one. Number two is perpetuating this big government spending, right? Nothing is ever being done to rein in the spending at all.
Right.
I think Rand Paul said something about the budget yesterday, but, other than him, there's not really anybody saying we need to rein in spending here. In fact, I think President Trump was talking about he wants to spend more on the military just this morning in one of the tweets when he was attacking the Democrats.
Right.
So this is what we have to face, right? We have to face, our children being stuck with an even bigger bill, right? And we're the ones in the middle, right? So the ones that are older than us are saying, hey, we're going to stick your children with the bill. Our children aren't saying, hey, we don't want that to happen. And us in the middle, everybody's just cool with it. Just like, whatever, that's the thing that frustrates me the most about all of this.
Yeah. And so with that same thought, we got a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. Low blood pressure from Corpus Christi.
Low blood pressure. Doing good, my friend. Good to hear your voice. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Okay, I just wanted to talk to Paul. I can't hear him, so I don't know if he was talking earlier, but I can't hear him on my end. I'll check out the replay. Anyways, Paul, I was going to ask you, when you bought that first house, the bank, they let you borrow whatever, say it was $100,000. All it was a ledger inside their computer, $100,000. Then they charge you the payment and the interest and the insurance and all of that. And when you don't pay, they take your house away. So they got a win-win. They got the money from nothing, and they sit there and charge you interest on it. What do you think about that?
So you won't be able to hear them because I have the earpiece in my ear. So you'll have to listen via the stream. So you have any other questions you want to ask before?
That's it. That's it. I just want to say it's a big old scam. That's all it is.
Yeah, sounds good. So he'll reply, but you'll only hear him on the live stream itself, not from him because I got the earpiece in. So thanks for calling, though. Appreciate it. All right.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, there's not a lot to add there other than I agree with that completely. It is a scam tied back to the fractional reserve banking. And here's the way I look at it, right? Take it one step further, because when you don't pay, the bank gets the house and they get to pocket something that's real, right? They get like the house and get to sell it for actual real money. But if that doesn't happen, which way are taxes going? Taxes are only going up. So it comes down to the point where you could lose your house because you haven't kept up with your property taxes as well. So, when we have this scam of an economy, we're at risk of the banks taking these houses, we're at risk of the government taking these houses. And, this is where it's going to end badly.
Yeah, and so as you mentioned that and bringing all that together, once again, the interview that I'm going to be posting, Alan Myers mentioned about, he's like, commentators have it wrong when they say the Federal Reserve prints money. He's like, they don't print money. They only create digital ledger reserves. That's all they do. They create reserves, and then there's a process to bring those reserves into a print as far as a paper. But he said all they do is bring into existence reserves that they use for purchasing actual tangible assets. That's all it is. Those reserves are meant to pay wages and buy assets, and they have the greatest benefit of all times because there are no reserves technically. It's just debits and credits and debit and ledgers or whatever that allows them themselves to purchase tangible goods. And a great example is that when they take your house, they brought something out of nothing, gave you a chance to buy something. If you lost it, they get something real back. So, I mean, how can you lose? That's a great business scam.
Yeah. And and it's the same thing with gold and silver, right? When they're selling all these naked short contracts on the COMEX, and they just pay these peddly little fines here and there. That's another great scam, right? How they can't lose, so why would they ever stop that either? So, switching gears a little bit here, Mike. This is just a side note, but I don't know. I just saw this today, but I know you've been following Chile. Next month, in the middle of November, President Trump and Xi were supposed to meet in Santiago, Chile, and sign phase 1 of the trade deal. Did you hear about that? But now Chile has actually canceled that summit.
I don't doubt it.
so now they're like saying, well, now the White House is a little disappointed because this is kind of out of left field. But, there's a few problems. The first problem I'm thinking is, well, you don't have to wait for a summit to do a trade deal. You can do a trade deal at any time, can't you?
Exactly. You can just have President Xi fly on over here and you roll out the paper, roll out the carpet and sign it and you fly back home.
Yeah, you can do it in front of Trump Towers, wherever, because he likes to do it in those kind of places, right? So you don't have to. But then the second thing that I want to tell you about is, people come together and they protest like the World Trade Organization and, all these things. And these things can get pretty nasty, but they never really cancel them. Have you noticed that? Like, whenever the World Trade Organization or the other one is like the UN has these like environmental meetings and sustainable development meetings. But it's so bad in Chile right now that they're canceling lesser conferences and events, right? Yeah. But nobody's getting word of just how bad the world is blowing up all around us.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be problematic. So I wonder if when was this released? When was this? This was as of today. This news became public to us via Washington Post. So I wonder, will the markets respond? Because I just saw a news flash about there being some activity, but it looked like it was more positive. But that type of news puts a little hiccup in the signatures being put on paper to confirm some type of phase 1, which definitely should be a red flag for the markets. But I would probably believe it'll probably be the opposite. So, we'll see. But there's so much stuff happening right now that the markets probably will definitely intentionally not be moved or be propped up if they do move right instantly because of the problems.
Yes, exactly. And then we'll welcome some more people into the chat here in a minute. And as we're doing that, actually, you know what? I can Slack these into the chat, can I? Let me see here. I'm going to do the second one. I'm going to try something new here. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Facebook post. Okay. So just take a minute to welcome the people in the chat again. And with that, remind everybody that SD Bullion has that free guess the spot price when it closes on Friday. You got to enter by 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, and you guess gold spot price or silver. So you can actually enter in both. No purchase necessary. You can win free gold or free silver for whoever comes the closest. So that's pretty cool. We talked about that last week, and I didn't know this, but I guess they're doing that every week. I don't know if it's going to be every single week, like from here on out, because that's a pretty sweet, like, perpetual contest they got going on, So just to remind everybody, check out SD Bullion's Facebook page because they've got those free ways to win gold and silver that all you got to do is put down silver. I'm not going to say the thing because they're going to be like, $50 told me to put down this and he's always wrong and no wonder I lost, right? So all you got to do is put down silver is this guess and then, gold is this guess. Yeah. And that's a free way to potentially add to that stack. And then also to remember, James did a really cool interview with Royal Canadian Mint for the Metals and Markets. And not a lot of people watched it. And I wish more people would have watched it because, we talked about this a little bit. Canada's on the cutting edge of all of this like technology and gold and silver coins and stuff like that with their pretties and their laser and their micro engraving and stuff. And I didn't know this, but this is going to be like the one good thing that that Steve Mnuchin does. One good thing at all, and I guess it's like starting in 2021, we're going to have a little more anti-counterfeiting measures embedded into the gold and silver bullion program here in the U.S. So that's cool, right? That's actually a good thing because we need to keep up with those kind of security features. But yeah, so just to mention, people can go to SD Bullion and also enter. No purchase required. So again, I'm not telling anybody about anything other than here's a couple chances to win free stuff, including free gold and silver.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with a chance to win something labeled free.
That's right. That's right.
All right, you put those links in the chat so people can click on them?
I put one in the chat. I can't remember if I did the silver one. I'm actually clicking on it now. Oh, I did the silver one. I'll do the gold one. I'll put the gold one in here too.
All right, just so people have the option to do such if they were interested. So let's get to the chat. Any questions, any thoughts? Anybody want to give us a call, feel free to do so. Phone lines are open, should be fully functional. Let me see if anything stands out here. GDP report indicates it was driven 100% by consumption. And consumption, where did we go? I lost it. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's a great point there. Those numbers have to do with the fact that it's geared towards consumption. So the moment we stop consuming as much or people begin just holding on a little bit more and staying at home instead of going out, there's going to be some problems.
Yeah.
But we have a call. Let's see if we can get somebody on here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dave. I'm calling from Virginia.
Dave from Virginia. How you doing this afternoon? What's in your mind?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you. Hey, I enjoy your show. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy rethinking the dollar. I always go and see what you got going on yourself, so I appreciate all that you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm watching your live show right here, and I'm just pondering everything that's going on, and I just agree with you guys in the fact that I think something big really has to happen because it's not only the pension crisis and Social Security, Medicare, the plunge protection team, rate cuts, the world's on fire, career politicians, and people that have been in office forever, Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, everybody, people on the left, people on the right, Mitch McConnell, 5G network, the California fires, Agenda 2030, American land being bought up by foreigners, American ports being bought up by foreigners, precious metal manipulators not getting in trouble and just getting slapped on the hand, mandatory vaccinations, chemtrails, cloud seeding. If you go all the way through everything, I just wanted a little rant because I agree with you guys. I've been getting my weight up. I believe in food, water, security, just as the head of the household. But I just want to let you know I support what you guys are doing, and I think it's just so much more than just the monetary system and everything else. I mean, they're attacking us from all angles, and I think if you take care of your own business, what you should have been taught when you were growing up, that the world would be a better place. And I'll just let you guys answer that, and I'll let you go. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Man, he laid it all out. So you gave us everything we needed. That rant was powerful. So
yeah. That was awesome. That was good stuff.
So we have another caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, David from Pennsylvania.
David from Pennsylvania.
Yep.
What's on your mind, David? Thanks for calling.
All right. Well, want to try out a theory on you, and the theory that Trump goading the Fed into negative interest rates would actually be just the thing that would cause the crisis in confidence in central banks and encourage the American people and, more importantly, the Congress to audit the Fed. Credit where credit is due. A lot of the ideas also come from David X22 report, but the idea is that when the Fed is driven to lower interest rates, even to negative, to prop up the economy, and the economy still goes into a recession, that Trump can blame the Fed and encourage an auditing of the Fed, and then we'll see the fraud, and it will help lead the movement to either nationalize the Fed or or lead to some kind of gold standard in its place.
Hey, I wouldn't disagree with you whatsoever. My only hiccup with that would be if they let Trump get that far. Because if he's really anti-swamp, anti-establishment like he touts himself to be when he ran for presidency, if he's genuine, then the chance of him getting that far will probably be cut short. Because that would prove that he was probably really not on their team and that he's not a part of this. Therefore, they have to do something to make sure he doesn't do that, what you're referring to. So if that goes through, then perhaps, he is the real deal. But, between now and the time something happens, whether it be something outside this country or inside, I'm not too confident or really expecting something of that nature to take place, especially in an orderly fashion. Like that'll take time to unravel. Right now, the politicians are so chaotic over impeachment. They're not going to come together to actually, lose their jobs and then be exposed for being bought and paid for politicians. Yeah, it'll be a lot of, that'll be interesting. But that's just my personal opinion. But hey, I appreciate the call, my friend, and the thoughts as well, because definitely this is all opinion based, so anybody can be right. We definitely will find out after the fact. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us.
All right. They've been trying awfully hard to take him out so far, and they have not been able to. Have they really?
I personally don't follow his security details and hearing about threats against him, physically. So I don't know what they've been attempting to take him out really truly means, because I imagine if they want to get to you, they can get to you if it's that important to them, because they have a way of making sure things don't get covered heavily in the news, i.e. the Epstein situation. So things that are important to people tend to get put under the radar mighty quick if it really poses a threat to the swamp or whoever they are. So, but I appreciate you calling in, my friend. Got another call. I want to get to that, but thanks for the comments and the thoughts. All right. Be good. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, hi there. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Jeff.
Jeff, how you doing, Jeff?
Jersey.
Jeff from Jersey. How you doing? What's on your mind this afternoon?
This is Jeff from New Jersey.
Yes, sir. How you doing? What's on your mind?
Well, I had an issue here now with delivering some coins to SD Bullion.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a selling some coins, and I went to FedEx. FedEx said, "Hey, look, you have to insure it." I said, "Okay, I understand. We got to insure it. It's up to $10,000. Mine was only about $4,000." And when she heard me say $4,000, I see her eyes light up a little bit, like, "What's in the box?" And she requested to open the box, and I said, "Listen, I have commodities in the box.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot. You don't have to open them. I'm telling you exactly what's in there."
Mm-hmm.
So she looks again, and now when you mail back your items to SD, they say, "Hey, make sure you put your banking information in there. You have to have all this information in there."
Mm-hmm.
So what happens now, she says, "Okay, we don't have to open it since you told me it was commodities." I said, "Okay, great." I leave the store, have my receipt, go back. I send what I need to send to SD Bullion. Everything's going great. Next thing I know, SD Bullion says, "Hey, where's your paperwork?" And it's obvious that this FedEx worker opened up the box, took out the documentation for SD Bullion. So I'm trying to figure out myself. It's a real good question. How do you ship discreetly back to SD Bullion without someone like a hungry FedEx worker ready to steal some of your bullion? I've seen many times where the last one I think was like FedEx lost a shipment for $1 million worth of coins. So that kind of worries me a little bit. So I just want to know, what's the best way to ship discreetly, even from FedEx?
Ooh, Paul, have anything on that? That's beyond me, because I don't know myself, so I can't share any thoughts with that one. But Paul, you got anything you want to share?
I can't share anything one way or another. I feel for him, definitely.
We want to get our coins back and forth and, make a little something off of them.
Yeah. And so I understand. So watch this. So I personally don't know. And Paul, he was going to share a thought, but yeah, you won't be able to hear him while he's on air. So Paul will touch on that off air. Appreciate your call, but definitely call customer service SD Bullion. They'll definitely take care of you, and probably want to ask those guys for some solutions or some thoughts as well. So those will probably be the right people to speak to directly.
Yeah, like my personal.
Hey, you guys are doing a wonderful job, man. I watch you guys all the time. You and Paul.
Appreciate it.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
All right, my friend. Be good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You too.
Yeah. My own personal like experience with this, I only shipped metal like a few years ago. The last time I shipped it, so I don't know what it's like now. But I actually use the USPS, the United States Post Service, and like with priority mail, you can pay extra to insure it up to the amount that it needs to be insured. So these were like, I mean, if I remember right, they were like $100 to send each of these packages. So it's not cheap to insure the metal. But I can't remember if I had to say there was gold and silver in there or what I did. But the bottom line is, I don't know what it's like right now because I have not done this. And definitely, we are not SD Bullion, right? People think that SD Bullion and Silver Doctors are the same, but it's not. But separate companies. But so my point with that being, give the guys at SD Bullion a call. They can explain exactly like what you need to know with that. And other than that, yeah, it comes down to crossing those T's and dotting those I's, and how to do that. I wish I had a better answer, but I don't.
All right, so we have another call. Appreciate that call, caller. Hello, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Mark from New Mexico.
Mark from New Mexico. Doing good, my friend. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Well, I want to see what you fellas think about this idea. Everybody has noted that rates for government bonds throughout Europe are going negative. In fact, even Greece issued a negative interest rate bond recently, and yet rates for United States government securities are still, 1.5%, 2.25%. Now, there's a rule in the finance industry that the higher the risk, the higher the rate. In other words, lenders will demand a higher interest rate from a debtor that they believe is a higher risk. So is the market telling us that they believe that U.S. government securities are actually higher risk securities than throughout most of Europe?
That is a great question, Paul. You got any thoughts to share with that? He won't be able to hear you directly. So are there any more thoughts you want to share with us, and then we'll hang up and we'll try to chime on that just a little bit with our thoughts. Anything else you want to share with us?
I wanted to get your thoughts on that one idea. Thanks, guys.
Okay, appreciate you for calling in, my friend. Thank you. All right, Paul, go ahead and share your thought. He'll be able to hear you now.
Yeah, no, those are great points, and exactly what he said. The higher the risk, the higher the interest rate, right? So how in the world can Greece, right, who's not even really out of their crisis, they're just under austerity, right? But how can they have negative interest rates even? Not even lower interest rates in the U.S., but negative interest rates. But see, I don't think that it's going to I don't think it reflects the risk accurately right now at all, because what we've had is decades and decades and decades of lowering interest rates, and over the last 10 years, it's really been 24/7 intervention and manipulation into that, just driving those rates down and then eventually driving them negative. So it's purely artificial right now. So the fact that the U.S. 10-year is at 1.8, I don't think that means that that's a higher risk than a Greek government debt. I just think it's so artificially suppressed that the natural market forces are not represented. And when the natural market forces finally start showing up, right, Greece is going to be paying 25% interest rates. The United States will be paying like 20%, if we're lucky.
Like, here's the biggest thing. Like, Argentinian bonds were extremely high. I mean, double-digit numbers for whatever, but they're junk. They're labeled as junk, and they are of extreme risk. So my thing is, as an investor or as just a person who not too savvy on the whole investment aspect of acquiring that type of stuff, I wouldn't trust it if it was 100% interest rate return, because it's basically saying that whatever it's going to be issued in, more than likely, they're going to default on it anyway, so you're going to take a haircut. So, like, we're entering a point where, because all central banks are going to zero, it's going to be an even field of just zero growth. Like, there's no way of growing out of this mess. So I don't care what Uncle Sam issues in a 50-year bond, what currency he's going to pay me in, because no doubt it's going to be devalued, defaulted on, or debased between now and 50. So why would I be willing to give him when I know I'm going to lose? So, yeah. But you got a thought?
Well, the problem is people don't realize how far we're into this system, right? We're 40, how many years now, Mike? We're 40 8 years into this system being extended when Nixon closed the gold window. So we do not have another 48 or 49 years from now. Not at all.
Exactly.
You know?
All right, so we have another caller. Let's see if we can get somebody here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Mike. I'm calling from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Mike from Pennsylvania. How you doing, Mike? We got a lot of people on the East Coast today calling. Appreciate you calling. What's on your mind?
I was just saying, I was just listening to your podcast, and I was thinking, have you guys ever heard of Chris Martinson?
Chris Martinson, definitely. Peak Prosperity, yep.
Yeah, I think that one of the I guess, more interesting things I've been listening to lately is him and how he talks about the energy cost of everything, the fuel cost to pull all the metals out of the ground and things like that. And so that's a really interesting argument. It really has reframed my whole preparedness and silver operations, everything like that, in that way. And so it's been really helpful, I think.
Yeah.
So I would recommend all the listeners to listen to that as well.
Oh, definitely. Chris Martinson does a great job of educating the public. And so I'm not sure, Paul, have we reached out to him yet for an interview?
Yeah, he's been on the show before.
Before I came on. So definitely somebody we probably got to reach out to again and get it back on. So definitely appreciate you calling and sharing that, my friend. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, be good.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, nobody's really talking about energy and oil anymore because so much money has been pumped into shale. And Mike, I drove all over the country like a couple times between 2015 and 2017, and like where they're doing all this shale stuff, those roads. I mean, you drive through Oklahoma and it's literally like you're driving through it's nonstop crappy roads that are like, and I'm talking about the major interstates here, that it's like, you're literally driving through something that had like tremors from an earthquake because the roads are just so broken and uneven as a result of that fracking. But all that money that's been pumped into the shale sector and fracking, that's just kind of like papered over this fact that there's going to be an energy crisis down the line.
Wow.
If you tie into like the Chris Martinson and Steve St. Angelo types of, theoretical work, which I think is sound, I think it's a solid footing.
Good point there. So Antilles said, how do I get a copy of the ADP report?
I closed that window. Hold on. I was going to link it. I was going to Slack it.
I got it. I can just put it in there right quick.
Yeah.
I got it right here. So I'll put the link in there right now. So here's the link. Yep.
Mike, we can't really end on a bad note because there's just been so much bad news today and we're going on hours. So let's switch the gears here for a second, Mike.
Okay.
So I'm looking right now from the National Retail Federation. Here's another reason that the consumer is tapped out, because consumers are spending less this year on Halloween. But I got a question, and I want to throw it out in the chat because my wife and I have been going back and forth for this, and we're running out of time. Like literally right now, we're running out of time because something's going to happen today. Should we give out Halloween candy or not? That's the question. And then if we should, the follow-up question is, how much should we spend? My wife and I were talking yesterday, and my wife has come to the agreement that she thinks that we should spend $50 on Halloween candy to hand out. $50 on Halloween candy. Now, we haven't handed out candy in a couple years because we were moving and we were renting and we weren't in a nice neighborhood, so we did the thing where we turned the lights off.
Yeah.
But the neighborhood where we live in now, man, there's going to be thousands of kids. I can already tell. I've seen these neighborhoods. Like when I lived in El Paso, like, those neighborhoods, right? Where you got the people rolling up in the vans and then like all of a sudden, like 8-10 kids come out the back of this van. And you're like, oh my goodness, how am I going to have enough candy? And the neighborhood I live in now, it's going to be one of those neighborhoods because the houses, they're like a tenth of an acre size lots, so you can get tons and tons and tons of candy. So I guess the question is, how much should I spend on candy if I should give that out at all?
So I'm looking at the chat. Some people say no candy. And we got some comments out there. But go ahead, finish up.
There's a lot of ones at Halloween is satanic and stuff, but I wanted to look at it from a market point of view because there's some interesting market dynamics about Halloween going on. And these are just a couple things that I noticed. But and I think about Halloween teaches a kid about like honesty, or it teaches a kid about how to game the system, right? Like everybody knows that one kid where, they got 2 bags, right? And then, the one bag is for them, but the other one is for their brother who broke their leg and couldn't go out trick-or-treating today. So that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the other thing that's good is when you come up to that house where it says like, take one, right? And it's got that little bowl outside and like, is everybody really taking one? Because you got that one kid that he's going to pick up that bowl and he's going to dump the whole thing into his bag, So there's a lot of, I get it. Is it Luciferian? Is it satanic? Is it good to do? Is it not good to do? But just the bottom line is there's a lot of interesting market dynamics that go on into Halloween. Another thing that I noticed, it also seems that I'm seeing less and less people over the years, because I do like to give out candy, right? I do like to give it out because with me, the way I do it, I put it on dark, and every once in a while I do the scare tactic where I'm like sitting in the chair, and then as they're coming up, I kind of like move. I don't like completely flat out scare them, so I don't want anyone to pull a gun on me or something like that when I'm trying to give out candy. But you do. I've always enjoyed doing these fun little things. Like the kids will come up and like he's dressed up as Spider-Man, and I'd be like, "Hey there, Iron Man, what you doing today, Iron Man? Good to see you." And he's like, "I'm Spider-Man," and I'll be like, "Oh, that's great. What's your favorite candy?" And he'll be like, "Snickers," and I'll be like, "Oh, great. Here's a Mounds for you." So I like to do these things. It's just kind of fun. But over the years, one of the things I've noticed, people are not spending the money on the costumes anymore. So now instead of spending, this money on a costume, you're going to the thrift store and you're doing like making up a costume, right? You're buying a couple thrift store clothes, throwing some ketchup on it, and turning yourself into a makeshift zombie or something like that, right? So, there are some very interesting dynamics market-wise that go along with Halloween. I don't know why I went there, but I just wanted to talk about it today.
It was timely, man. It's a good way to end on some joke. And so what's what that was a whole little comedy skit type of thing, and I'm sure you weren't intending to do that. But when you said jump and have somebody pull a gun on you,
yeah, we've all seen the videos, right, where you're sitting down there, and I love doing this because the little kids are scared, right? The kids are scared to come up to you, but like they just see you sitting there, and they don't know if you're a real person or not. Yeah. They just see you sitting there. And then you just move a little bit and they like jump. Oh, it's good stuff. So I haven't planned it out yet because my wife and I are still debating, because I'm like, honey, we can't live in a nice neighborhood the very first Halloween and then just turn off all the lights and pretend we're not here. I'm like, they're that family that doesn't give out the candy to the kids.
So as part of the inauguration process of the new house, you got to just go and just drop 100, man. Just make it 100 and be done with it. But no. So, all right, man. So let's get it down back because I'm laughing too much over here. So, all right. So with that being the case, everybody's been great hanging out. We're about to call it in for this week's episode. Stay tuned to all the events that's going to unfold today, the rest of this week, and so when we see you again next Monday, we're going to have a lot to talk about. So make sure you guys come back. And as always, if you've enjoyed the back and forth, you enjoyed being able to call in tonight. Today the phone lines were nice. So I appreciate all the thoughts, comments, and participation because, once again, it's about you guys. So our goal is just to connect us to you and you to everybody else. So if you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up beneath this video here. Other than that, be blessed, be safe. Any last thoughts, Paul, before I hit the end button?
This is a very, very important week. Action's coming here in just a couple hours, actually just an hour and a half from now when Powell starts speaking and the FOMC hits the tape at 2. But then we have the jobs report on Friday, the actual government jobs report. And these are one of those days where the cartel likes to come in and smash. I don't think that they're going to smash because I think we've been in a pullback since like September 3rd or whatever it's been. So I think we're ready to rally here. I still think that we're ready to rally. But either way, it's going to be a jam-packed session come Monday when we go live, Mike.
Yeah, good deal. So, yeah.
We'll be on top of it.
Yeah, we will. All right, people. Be blessed, be safe, and we will see you later. Enjoy your Halloween if you do that or whatever. If you don't do it, then ignore it. And then make sure you give out some good candy if you do participate. So kids hate getting not so good candy. But anyway, that's it. That's enough. I'm done for the day. Be blessed, be safe. See you guys later. Peace.